Look at that.
When you're the best of friends.
Before The Lion King made you cry or Bambi broke your heart, The Fox and the Hound did both, quietly and softly. This bittersweet Disney classic tells a story of friendship divided by nature, but behind the screen, it mirrored real conflict inside the studio. It was Walt's legacy versus a new generation of dreamers. There were walkouts, rewrites, and moments where the film nearly got canceled altogether. Yet somehow, from all that chaos came one of Disney's most emotional and enduring movies. So grab your tissues and hum Best of Friends, because here are 20 weird and wonderful facts about The Fox and the Hound. Production began in 1977 and didn't finish until 1981, making The Fox and the Hound the longest Disney animated production up to that time. The delay wasn't because of laziness, it was because the studio itself was changing. The legendary 9 old men, Walt's original animation team, were retiring, and a new crew of young artists, including future stars Glen Keane, Ron Clements, and John Musker, were taking over. These two generations clashed over story, pacing, and art style. Should the movie feel like an old Disney fairy tale or something grittier and real? Scenes were scrapped, songs rewritten, and characters redesigned multiple times. By the end, more than 350 artists had their names in the credits. That struggle between tradition and innovation gave the film its unique mix of warmth and realism, and laid the foundation for Disney's animation renaissance a decade later. In 1979, halfway through production, veteran animator Don Bluth staged a walkout, taking 11 animators with him. It was a disaster for the studio. Overnight, Disney lost 15% of its animation staff, including some working on key scenes like Copper's first hunt and Big Mama's musical number. Bluth was frustrated with Disney's assembly line methods and wanted to bring back the deep shadows and realism of early classics. When he left, he took half the film's uncolored cells with him, not out of spite, but as part of his own unfinished work. Production froze for weeks as Disney scrambled to replace him, and he thought the studio would never recover. But out of that collapse came two paths. Bluth went on to make The Secret of NIMH, while Disney rebuilt itself from the ground up, setting the stage for The Little Mermaid. Ironically, The Fox and the Hound, a story about friendship and rivalry, was born out of the studio's biggest real-life feud. The chemistry between young Tod, Keith Coogan, and Copper, Corey Feldman, wasn't fake. It was the real thing. Director Ted Berman had the boys record their lines in the same booth together, which was unusual at the time. Instead of stiff, scripted reads, their sessions sounded like two kids actually playing. They'd talk over each other, giggle mid-line, and throw in tiny improvisations the writers kept. That's why the friendship scenes feel so natural. You're hearing genuine laughter. Later, when adult Tod, Mickey Rooney, and adult Copper, Kurt Russell, took over, they kept that same dynamic by recording side by side. Disney even let them riff during "We'll Always Be Friends, Won't We?" And that hesitation before the "won't we" was unscripted. It's a tiny pause that still makes hearts crack decades later. What's your favorite Disney duo? Tod and Copper, Timon and Pumbaa, or Woody and Buzz? Comment your pick and smash that like if you've ever had a friend like these two. In the original 1967 Daniel Mannix novel, Chief doesn't just get hurt, he dies, and Copper's thirst for revenge drives the rest of the story. Disney kept that plot until test screenings made everyone uncomfortable. Animator Frank Thomas argued it was too dark. Kids shouldn't leave crying over a dog, so they rewrote it. Chief survives, just injured. But that small change divided the animators. Some thought it weakened Copper's motivation, while others said it kept Disney's emotional balance. Frank himself animated Chief's fall under the train, using slowed-down footage of running dogs and real crash models for accuracy. The scene still feels terrifying even without death, and it marked Thomas's last major contribution before retirement. Chief may have survived, but the movie's emotional scar stayed, proof that even Disney's happily ever afters can have bite. When production began, The Fox and the Hound was pitched as Disney's country adventure. The idea was to make it sound authentically American: banjos, fiddles, and Southern drawl. They even considered hiring Johnny Cash or Willie Nelson to perform the main theme. But test audiences thought it made the movie feel too adult and regional. So composer Buddy Baker scrapped the honky-tonk style for something more universal: lush strings mixed with harmonica and banjo for warmth. Still, one country demo survived, a scrapped tune called Two Good Pals, which predated Best of Friends. That early draft song can still be found in the Disney archives, and parts of its melody were later reused in Home on the Range, 2004. So even though the country version didn't stick, a little twang from Fox and the Hound still echoes decades later. Pearl Bailey, who voiced Big Mama, walked into the studio, warmed up her throat once, and nailed Best of Friends in a single take. Her performance was so heartfelt that the orchestra refused to redo it, despite a few timing imperfections. Bailey's jazz background gave the song its natural swing. She even improvised vocal runs between lyrics, forcing the animators to match her phrasing later. When they synced the song with footage of Tod and Copper playing, the crew reportedly teared up. Director Art Stevens called it the moment we realized this movie wasn't about foxes and dogs, it was about growing up. Bailey's voice gave the film its soul, and her warmth carried the emotional center that kept Disney's new generation grounded in classic heart.
Who can say you discover will that friendship ever end?
The climactic bear fight is one of the most intense hand-drawn sequences Disney ever made. The bear, dubbed the Demon, took months to animate. Glen Keane led the scene, using his own reflections in a mirror to capture the bear's snarling expressions. Animators studied slow-motion footage of bears wrestling, sketching fur and muscle detail frame by frame. The challenge? Making the scene terrifying but not gory. To show weight, Keane layered movement on twos, one drawing for every 2 frames, giving the bear a thundering heaviness that contrasts with Copper's fast, snappy motions. Every slash and roar was paired with a real animal sound recorded at Los Angeles Zoo. By the time they finished, over 20,000 cells were used, an insane number for one scene. It's a masterclass in tension and animation craft, still unmatched in hand-drawn form. When The Fox and the Hound finally released, it became the official debut of the studio's new generation, artists who would later create The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, and Aladdin. Among them were Glen Keane, John Lasseter, Brad Bird, and Tim Burton. Yes, that Tim Burton. Burton worked briefly as an in-betweener, but found the film's cute style too clean. His rough sketches of sad, gothic animals didn't fit Disney's tone, though decades later, Frankenweenie and Corpse Bride would prove his instincts right. So while The Fox and the Hound looks like a gentle forest tale, it was secretly a training ground for the artists who would revolutionize animation. Without it, Disney's 1990s golden era might never have happened. Walt's team wanted realism even in fantasy. So the final forest farewell between Tod and Copper was based on real research into how foxes and hounds behave after confrontation. Wildlife advisors told the animators that animals rarely hate, they simply follow instinct. That's why the ending feels so poignant. Copper protects Tod not out of sentiment but out of quiet respect, echoing natural animal behavior where rivals sometimes show mercy after conflict. The animators even studied animal documentaries for body language. Notice how Tod doesn't wag or approach, he just watches. The result is subtle and haunting. It's not a Disney happily ever after, it's bittersweet truth. Be honest, did you cry at that ending? Drop your response in the comments if The Fox and the Hound still hits harder than any modern movie. Disney movies were always considered family safe, but The Fox and the Hound pushed the limit. The train track chase, gunfire, and bear fight alarmed test audiences, and Disney's internal review board briefly suggested a PG rating. That would have been a first for their animated division. Ron Miller, Walt's son-in-law and studio head, fought to keep it G, arguing that children understand danger if there's compassion after. To tone it down, they cut several seconds of blood and added gentle musical cues after intense moments. The strategy worked. Parents cried, kids gasped, and critics praised its honesty. It taught Disney a crucial lesson. Real emotion comes from risk. Without Fox and the Hound, later films like Lion King might never have dared to go dark. Sound designer Jimmy McDonald wanted Copper's mournful howl to feel almost human. Instead of using one dog, he layered multiple recordings of real hounds from different farms, each slowed down slightly. In total, 15 separate tracks were blended to create Copper's signature call. For the echo effect, engineers played the final mix through a speaker in an actual forest clearing and re-recorded the playback. That's why it sounds like it's echoing across valleys. It literally was. The result is spine-tingling, especially in the final scene where Copper stands guard over Tod. It's one of the first times Disney used real-world acoustics to convey emotion. In early storyboards, Big Mama was written as a wise old male owl called Oliver. But when Pearl Bailey joined the cast, she reimagined the role with sass and warmth, rewriting entire lines herself. Her ad-libbed advice, "You can't change nature, honey," wasn't in the script but became the movie's thesis. The animators loved it so much they redrew the owl with feminine curves and a more expressive face. The name Big Mama came directly from Bailey, who used it as a term of endearment for younger crew members. She turned what could have been a stiff narrator role into one of Disney's most soulful mentors. To nail the authenticity of movement, Disney's team brought live foxes, dogs, and even a raccoon onto the Burbank lot. They filmed them walking, jumping, and interacting so animators could sketch realistic weight and posture. Glen Keane said the foxes never stopped moving, forcing the artists to simplify every pose into fluid shapes. Those observation sessions also revealed how animals express emotion, ears lowering, tails twitching, eyes widening, which became the emotional vocabulary of the film. The studio even noted that foxes rarely blink during tension, inspiring Todd's intense stare-downs with Copper. It's that attention to detail that makes the animation still feel alive 40-plus years later. The Fox and the Hound marked the end of an era. It was the last Disney feature to use the classic ink and paint process before the studio switched to the Xerox method full-time. Every frame was traced and colored by hand, over 800,000 cells in total. The process was slow and exhausting, but it gave the movie a soft, handcrafted glow missing from later Xerox films. Animators said it looked alive with fingerprints. After this, the Black Cauldron would go full Xerox, changing Disney's visual texture forever. Do you prefer the warm, hand-drawn look or the slick modern style? Drop your pick below and smash that, like if you miss the old magic. Thanks to delays, walkouts, and technical experimentation, The Fox and the Hound ballooned from a $7 million budget to nearly $12 million, making it Disney's most expensive animated film at the time. The studio's accountants panicked, especially since the rescuers had only just turned a profit. Ron Miller defended the overspending, insisting the movie would prove Disney could still compete with Bluth's new studio. His gamble paid off. Fox and the Hound grossed $63 million worldwide, rescuing Disney's animation department financially. That success restored investor faith just in time for the next generation to rise, setting the stage for The Little Mermaid 8 years later. Amos Slade, the gruff hunter who owns Copper, was drawn directly from author Daniel Mannix's real-life experience. Mannix had grown up in rural Pennsylvania and knew a real man who kept dozens of hunting dogs and treated them like soldiers. That man's relentless pursuit of a fox on his property became the seed of The Fox and the Hound. When Disney adapted the story, the filmmakers softened Amos considerably. In the book, he's cruel and obsessive, but in the film, he's stubborn, old-fashioned, and strangely sympathetic. Voice actor Jack Albertson leaned into that nuance, making Amos more grumpy grandpa than villain. Animators based his walk on actual 1940s hunting footage, even adding details like his slight limp, the way he adjusts his hat before firing, and how he pats Copper's head with pride. They wanted audiences to see that Amos wasn't evil, just a man shaped by a world of rules and rivalry. That human complexity helped make The Fox and the Hound one of the first Disney films where the bad guy wasn't truly bad at all. Animator Glen Keane was still in his 20s when he took on the terrifying bear sequence, his first solo scene lead. He poured months into making the creature both terrifying and noble. He wanted the bear to feel real, massive, scarred, and intelligent, so he watched hours of nature documentaries, studying how bears balance aggression and grace. He layered each motion with incredible detail, trembling nostrils, rolling muscles, and flashes of restraint before each strike. Years later, when designing The Beast for Beauty and the Beast, 1991, Keane realized he was channeling the same energy. The beast was the bear, just civilized, he said in interviews. The expressive eyes, the heavy shoulders, the wounded body language, it all came from this earlier experiment in animal emotion. So, in a strange way, that ferocious forest showdown birthed one of Disney's greatest love stories. The DNA of the Fox and the Hound still lives in the beast's tragic, misunderstood soul. Disney almost always centers romance, a princess and a prince, or at least a flirty subplot. But The Fox and the Hound broke the formula completely. It's a story about two boys, one wild, one trained, whose friendship collapses under the weight of growing up. There's no love interest, no comic relief sidekick duo, just emotional honesty. When the idea first reached Disney execs, some pushed back. Kids need a love story, one note read. The writers insisted, friendship is love. They focused on brotherhood, loyalty, and heartbreak instead of romance. It was a creative gamble that paid off. Audiences, especially parents, connected deeply. Many saw their own childhood friendships reflected in Tod and Copper's story. The film proved that Disney didn't need a royal couple to move hearts. Sometimes two friends growing apart is the most human story of all. That emotional DNA carried into later buddy films like Toy Story and Monsters, Inc., both spiritual descendants of The Fox and the Hound. When The Fox and the Hound premiered in July 1981, reviews were all over the place. Some critics praised it as a return to classic Disney storytelling, while others dismissed it as too sentimental. But families didn't care what the critics said. They showed up in droves. The film opened to $4.2 million in its first weekend, a strong showing for an animated movie in the early 80s. It stayed in theaters for months, earning over $63 million worldwide, and later became a massive VHS hit in the 90s, selling more than 5 million copies. What kept people coming back was the honesty. It wasn't just another talking animal cartoon. It was about life, loss, and change. Even the critics who panned it admitted one thing: audiences cried, a lot. Animator Glen Keane later said, "People think it's about a fox and a hound, but it's really about us, about growing apart from the ones we love." That truth is what turned it from a divisive movie into a generational memory. Walt Disney had been gone for 15 years when The Fox and the Hound hit theaters, but his fingerprints were still there, especially in the ending. During production, a team cleaning out the old Burbank archives found one of Walt's old story notes from Bambi, 1942. It read, "Let them grow apart, but remember love." That line hit the team like lightning. They pinned it on the storyboard wall and rewrote the final scene to reflect it. Instead of a dramatic goodbye, they made it quiet. Tod watching from the hill, Copper guarding below. No dialogue, just understanding. It became one of the most emotionally mature endings in Disney history. No big reunion, no happy song, just peace. Animator Art Stevens later said that that was Walt's voice guiding us. He taught us that love doesn't always mean staying together. It means caring, even when you can't. To this day, that silent final glance remains one of Disney's purest lessons in compassion. Conclusion. And there you have it, 20 weird, emotional, and downright beautiful facts about The Fox and the Hound, the movie that quietly redefined Disney. It was born from turmoil, carried by passion, and finished with a message that's as human as it gets. Time changes everything, but love doesn't fade. Next time you hear Best of Friends, remember that every frame of that film was drawn through conflict, pain, and hope, just like the friendship it depicts. Which fact surprised you most? Drop it below, hit like if The Fox and the Hound ever made you tear up, and subscribe for more deep dives into the stories behind Disney's most emotional masterpieces.